Okay, welcome everyone to the Flowing Health Podcast. I'm very excited today to have Clare Downham, the Queen of Calm, on our show. So we're going to be very relaxed after this talk, hopefully. And Clare is the creator of the Calmcast. She's very active on platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, helping people actually to understand themselves. So we're going to just dive deep into becoming calmer and what that means in all our lives. So welcome, Clare.
Hi, thank you for having me. Lovely to be here.
Great. And I usually start asking guests maybe what maybe brought them to where they are today. Obviously, I do know that you were a head teacher before. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background and what brought the shift to go into this new world of calm.
Yeah, so like you said, I was a primary school head teacher. I did 20 years in primary education. But unfortunately, I burnt out in 2015. I say unfortunately, and I'm not sure actually whether it was in the end unfortunate, because it's led me onto a path that's been truly wonderful and life-changing. So when I went to work one day and looked at my computer and just couldn't do it anymore, I walked out and I actually never went back. I was off sick for a whole year. I had adrenal burnout, which is not to be scoffed at. It's not pleasant at all. And kept trying to go back and just couldn't. My body was just saying no repeatedly. And then I decided to resign. Well, I kind of decided, or was helped, persuaded, I guess, to resign in the end, because my school didn't have a substantive head teacher and they wanted to move forward. And I couldn't really say when I was going to be better, because I'd never experienced something like this before. I'd always been fine. So it was, I just didn't know when I'd be back, so I couldn't really tell them. So I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. But then I received an email from a company where I had done some online training in the past. And the email was all about a hypnotherapy training course. So that's what I did. I'm not a hypnotherapist anymore, which we'll come on to shortly, but I started a hypnotherapy business. And that happened in about the autumn of 2016, when I was kind of partway through the training, and they said, right, you're trained enough now, you can go off and start being a hypnotherapist. And I grew quite a nice hypnotherapy business. It was all in person here in Leeds, and it was going really well. The little side issue was that, I think partly because of what had happened to me, but partly because I'd bought into this kind of hustle idea of being in business. I thought I was supposed to be motivated all the time. So I was really triggered by that, I suppose, the best way to put it. So I'd have, weeks when I was fine and doing everything I thought I should be doing, in inverted commas. And that would be great. And then I'd have a dip. And, by this point, I'm a middle-aged woman. So having dips in energy and ups and downs they're pretty normal for every human being. But I think as you go into midlife, they become even more part of being human. But I was not happy about that at all. And I proceeded then to do lots of things to try and make myself be more motivated, not procrastinate, be more productive. And that included a lot of like Miracle Morning and tools and techniques and things like that. A lot of books. I read every productive. And look at all the books behind you.
You probably had a lot of these.
I've probably been through a few of those. And also a lot of therapy. I felt there was some kind of root cause in the past that I needed to unearth and reframe or redo in order to feel better. So that went on for about 3.5 years. And I was kind of okay, but I would say I was okay, like hanging on with my fingernail ends, kind of stuck on a hamster wheel of self-development, feeling like I couldn't really get off that. But yeah, kind of functioning on a day-to-day basis, but definitely didn't feel like I could stop doing what I was doing. I thought I think I thought I'd lie on the sofa and never get off it if I didn't carry on. And then in January 2020, a friend of mine had trained in the understanding that I now share, known as the 3 principles. He trained with a man called Michael Neal and done something called Super Coach Academy. And he just put a post on Facebook saying, I need some people to practice my coaching on. And I went, oh, this will be the thing to fix me then. Still seeking, still trying to find that thing. And ironically, it did, but in a completely different way. well, I wasn't broken and I didn't need fixing was one of the fundamental things that I learned through working with him. And I was introduced to this understanding by him and started to get a real sense that there was something in what he was saying that was very different to everything else I'd ever heard in my life, really. So I took a real deep dive into it, listened, connected with other teachers, listened to books and podcasts, and really just, I guess, immersed myself in this understanding. And very quickly started to notice that I was very different, that I was calmer, despite having meditated for probably 4 years every single day. I was in these places of calm that I'd never experienced even whilst meditating. It was the transformation that was happening was huge. And then March 2020 came along, which we'll all remember, perhaps not fondly, but but we all remember March 2020. And of course, at that point, my in-person hypnotherapy business was gone. I also used to run an in-person networking event. That was also gone. So I had a little period like everybody else of like, oh, what am I doing now? Am I moving hypnotherapy online? How am I pivoting? That was the word of the age, wasn't it? Pivoting. How am I going to pivot? But actually, I couldn't carry on doing hypnotherapy. It felt, because of what I'd learned in that few months and because of the transformation I'd experienced, despite doing hours of hypnotherapy before that, the transformation had been so huge that I couldn't, with a good conscience, carry on doing the hypnotherapy when I knew I wanted to share what I'd seen in that few months. So I carried on with this deep dive, and then I did some training with a lovely couple who are based in Hawaii. Unfortunately, not in Hawaii. Got to hear some of the Hawaiian jungle in the background, but didn't actually get to go to Hawaii. So, and that's been since then. I've noticed. So we're 3 years down the line now, and every day I notice something different about how I'm being in the world.
Yeah,
something more is revealed. Something more is let go of from my old conditioned way of responding or reacting to things, rather. Yeah. And I seem to think I'm really calm, and then I get to a new level of calm. I can't believe that it's actually possible. So that's
never-ending levels of calm. Sounds good.
Yeah, definitely.
Or deeper, diving deeper. And you mentioned the 3 principles. Can we talk a little bit about, because I don't know much about this or anything, psycho-spiritual understanding, maybe talk a bit around the 3 principles?
Yeah, so the 3 principles were uncovered, I guess you would say, by a man called Sydney Banks 50 years ago this year. He was a normal kind of guy. He was actually a Scottish welder who was living in Canada on Salt Spring Island. He didn't really have anything to do with anything spiritual or that kind of seeking. He wasn't really a seeker. He was just a normal guy. But he was having some problems in his marriage. And the story, as I understand it, is that his wife took him along to some weekend couples thing or some course. And he was just like, he was really not wanting to be involved in this thing. And he got chatting to another fella, and this guy said, and Sydney said, you know what, I don't really want to share. I'm really insecure, and I don't really want to share this thing. I don't want to talk. It's not my kind of thing because I'm really insecure. And this man said, you're not insecure. You just think you are. And just from that little sentence, basically Sydney had a huge insight. He suddenly saw that truth, that none of us are anything other than what we think. None of us are what we think we are. None of us are really, all the labels that we've picked up through life. None of us are truly, all these problems that we think we are, this personality type we think we are, all these things that we think we are just an illusion, literally. And so he had this kind of few days where he could hardly sleep because the whole thing was almost like downloading, like when you have a massive insight, he just kept coming. And he was saying to his wife, I'm going to be sharing this around the world. And she was like, what are you on about, you nuts? She just couldn't believe it. But that's exactly what happened. He wrote multiple books. He spoke this understanding all over. But he also very quickly realized that he was just some Joe Bloggs that nobody knew. So he then began to connect with psychologists and invite people like that to come and listen to him. And some of those people who are now in their 70s and 80s still share this understanding to this day. And then it's obviously filtered down. But I kind of call them the elders in the community. There's still a lot of them about, still sharing the understanding. So the understanding it's known as a psycho-spiritual understanding of how we work as humans. Really simple, principle-based. So it's like gravity. It doesn't matter where you're in, it doesn't matter what kind of human you are, where you live in the world, or your experience is being created in the same way. So that's nice because it's clean. Like there's a lot of different models and theories about how we work, but this has got real kind of, yes, principles. So it's truth. It feels like truth to me anyway. And I think when people start to explore it, they see the truth in it. So the 3 principles are known as mind, thought, and consciousness, but I'll just expand on that a bit because people have all sorts of different meanings they would attribute to those words. So mind for me is what you would, energy. You might call it energy. You might call it, some people would call it God. Some people would say universe. I kind of like the energy of nature. So it's that aliveness that we have as human beings. It's that thing that brings everything to life within us and how we see the world. And, it's what brings our feelings to life. It's this energy of life. And it's the same energy that runs through you and me and everybody listening and all the trees and the birds and everything else. It's the same energy. There's that sense of a oneness, which comes across in a lot of different spiritual teaching. So and you can see that, if you've ever been with somebody who's passed, you can see that aliveness has left them. It's not in that body anymore. It's gone, So I like the phrase, there's one spiritual energy having 7.8 billion human experiences. It's a sense of
underlying. Yeah, I love that as well.
Yeah, like a connectedness really between us. And then we think, thought is a universal thing that every single human being is doing. And it's interesting because it's that we're all doing, but it's that separates us. That's what separates somebody who, thinks they don't like certain kinds of people because of the colour of skin or whatever. That's just thought. It's just something somebody's learned. And that thought, that our personal thinking comes from our conditioning. We only think the way we think because we've learned what we've learned as we've gone through life. So there's a sense of that not being perhaps the highest quality of stuff, especially the stuff that makes us feel uncomfortable. It's not good quality stuff. It's just the past that we're regurgitating into our conditioned response to things. And then consciousness, which of course is what brings things to life in us. We can have a negative thought and it can just go past and we don't really, but as soon as we kind of say it's a worrying thought, we focus on that, we bring it more and more awareness and more attention, and that kind of brings it alive. It's like an energy then, and then we feel that in our bodies. So that's one thing that's really important, and why it's often called the inside out understanding, is that it's an understanding that 100% of our feelings come from the inside, not the outside. And of course, believing that our feelings come from the outside world creates human suffering, basically. It means that we chase things in the outside world. It means that we say horrible things to people we love because we just feel we've got to relieve the pressure. So we press the button and the button releases blare into the world. There's something horrible. We say something horrible to somebody we love. It's what causes people to do the worst, horriblest things to people, is the misunderstanding that our feelings are being created in the outside world. So, and once people understand that, the navigation of life changes completely.
And is each area, how long, I mean, it's hard to say how long the process might take, because some people might get things more quickly, but is it like a program that people go through and you take time on the mind first, the thoughts, or do you work on all of them together? I'm just curious.
Tend to work on all of them together, really, because people will come to me with an issue. And of course, the 3 principles, often in the end, Sydney was saying that it's one thing. It's all part of the same thing. It's all part of this energy that is life, so it's better to explore them together. And it will depend on what somebody brings to the table as to whether you which one you kind of emphasize, because it will depend what they're actually talking about as to whether you think it's kind of which one you need to kind of focus on.
Yeah, because I imagine, thinking about the thoughts and conditioning you mentioned, that must be one of the trickiest things, belief systems and how we're brought up, often from a young age, which becomes almost unconscious. So it's bringing that to their attention, obviously, but then it's not that easy to just let it go quickly, is it?
No, that is, like you say, we're so in it. Yeah. That seeing it, we're trying to see it with the same thinking that it is anyway, so we can. And that's why some self-development stuff, to me, is the idea of the self, is a concept. It's not real. And then you're trying to do self-development to fix yourself with the self itself, so you can't really. You end up like, that's why people end up going round and round in circles with it, because it's your thinking. And really, I would say that the process I take people through is more of an awareness raising process, that it's becoming more and more aware. And one of the key things is knowing that our feeling state, our emotional state in the moment, is created by the thoughts that we're focusing on. That's it. They're not coming from anywhere outside. So, for example, if in the past, if I'd received an unpleasant WhatsApp message from somebody or something like that, I would, immediately, from the place of feeling awful, think, right, the only way to relieve this awful feeling is to send a very, telling off message back, or some kind of unpleasant message back. And I'm putting out into the world then from this awful feeling. And of course, then I put something awful out into the world. You can't not, because your thinking's off. So, but now when I see an unpleasant message and I feel that initial conditioned reaction, I now know to put my phone down and walk away. We've all done it, haven't we? We've all written an email where we've nearly broken the keyboard and then gone, actually, let's just leave that in drafts for now. We come back to the next morning and go, oh my God, thank goodness I didn't send that. It's flipping awful, and then we delete half the words probably and end up sending something much simpler. So we still may wish to express something to that person, but we do it in such a different way when we're calm. We've got better thinking, basically, when we're calm.
And it reminds me, though, a lot about like in Buddhism and non-duality school, the Indian non-duality, you're not your body and you're not your mind or your thoughts and feelings. So just to be the observer almost. And I think that's a kind of similar thing, but it's not easy. So it sounds quite interesting to have, these three core principles. There's a clarity there, because sometimes, with some of these teachings, becoming the awareness, how do you start? Where do you start? And I think the Dalai Lama, I love, he often talks about, like, when we have anger or something, we say, I'm angry, but actually, I don't say I am a cold. I have a cold, and it's like I have anger. Or anger's visiting, it's on its way. I'm feeling anger, but I'm not anger. So that's observing it and realizing exactly what you're saying, that we're not, our thoughts and feelings, but that's not easy. I think in a world that's speeding up so much, I think especially younger people, I notice they don't have time to even pause and observe anything, because there's a ping on TikTok or something, and their mind's taken away, and to settle into themselves. Do you work with sort of younger people as well, or do you find it harder with the younger people because of the distractions?
Most of my clients tend to be midlife people, often business owners. But interestingly, I went for a coffee with an ex-colleague last week. Went for lunch actually, and she was talking about the children because she's a primary school head teacher, was saying the children who've been through lockdown, she works in a very deprived area in the city of Leeds. She was saying that some of those children that have missed a lot of school and been at home in some really quite unpleasant environments are unteachable. We're talking year one children, 5 and 6 years old now. And I was saying to her, I've actually done some training to go and deliver this in schools. And then bizarrely, I got another message. Sometimes the universe is just tapping from my children's old learning mentor, asking, my son's an actor, and she was asking if my son would go and talk to the kids, to give them like an aspirational talk type thing. And I messaged her back and said, yeah, I can try and get Jack to do that, but maybe I've got something that can help in terms of how children see themselves, because a big part of what I share is about innate well-being. It's about seeing that everything is still inside us, everything that tiny child had, all the confidence it had to, do everything that little children do, where they clearly don't care what anybody else thinks about them, all the resilience it took for us to learn to walk and talk, but that's all still inside us. It's like a diamond inside, it's unbreakable, but that it's just got covered over by this dirty conditioned thinking, which is just all the rubbishy things people said to us. And if we can point children to that, and to also just to start, for all of us to just start to take our thinking with a pinch of salt. I often say, if you've got an awful feeling, that's your warning system. Like when you're talking before about how we get this awareness, well, for me, it is off feeling, off thinking. So when you've got off thinking, because it's almost like once you get that, it's like a sign comes up in front of your face going, stop, stop. It's literally that kind of pronounced. Once you start to get in touch with this, whatever riled up, angry, upset, anxious feeling you've got, then that becomes the tool for awareness, really. And almost I find I don't really need to get too caught up in what the thinking actually is. It's just knowing that that's my human dashboard, just letting me know that I probably need to stop.
Yeah.
Probably just need to take a breath for a minute, like the kind of things that you do where, you encourage people. And those kind of things like that can then come into play, because then when we know we're out of kilter, we've got something to hand that is helpful in terms of what to do. But the doing comes from the knowing rather than us just doing things because somebody else has told us we need to do them.
Well, that sounds really precious. If you can take that to younger children and make them realize at an earlier age, then it's going to avoid a lot of trauma later on and problems that just build up, and then it's hard to clear a lot of that that debris, if you like, So are you suggesting, have they asked you to come in? That'd be quite interesting to come in and teach.
Yeah, so my friend I just said to my friend who's a head teacher, just kind of at the end of our meeting together, I just said, could I come and try this program out? Like, I won't even charge her because bless them, they've got no money at the moment of school. So I could go and just try it out and see if it's helpful. So I'm kind of open to, I kind of like to play with things and see where they lead and not get too go, it's going to be like this, but it's such a simple understanding, and children do get it quickly.
They get it quickly, I know.
Yeah, because they've not got as much rubbish in their heads as us. They've not, although obviously some of the children my friends dealing with have got an awful lot more rubbish probably than I have at 52, because they've experienced things that I've never experienced already by the age of 5 and 6.
But also, I think at that age, even if they can turn it around much more quickly. I think they say, what was that famous expression? You give me a child of 7 and I'll tell you the adult, who they'll become. So I think up to 7, 8-ish, that kind of age, they're much more malleable, even if things have happened. The healing also, I think, and the understanding, they can pick it up probably much more than adults, because adults have layers and layers, don't they?
Yeah, and I, on the odd occasion, I have worked with younger people, even people kind of in their early 20s or late teens. I've seen that they very quickly, they seem to have the insights quite quickly, and they go, oh my God, why has nobody told me this before? And then off they go, and they're just like, do you know what I mean? They just get it really quickly. So I think you're right. If it's articulated well, young people they've not moved as far away, like you say, they've just not moved as far away from the truth of who they are as we have as adults.
I remember I was teaching in a primary school. I was teaching Qigong, and they asked me to come to my daughter's school, and just a relaxation exercise. And one of the exercises, holding an empty ball of light, for example, and relaxing. And so the ball goes up into the air, we bring it back down, and we went up to the air, and then one of the children, there were like 30, went pop, and they all went pop, and it was gone. And that's in my life, that had never happened. It's like, what happened to my 20 years of practice? You know, it's just disappeared into thin air. It was a moment of, it was just beautiful. You know, the way children see the world, like, why do we need this ball anyway? You know, and then the teacher got quite angry, and I said, no, just relax. You know, let's just try and find it again and bring it back down and be more grounded, because sometimes children, their spirit is quite sort of out there. So it was kind of a grounding as well. But it's a beautiful moment where I just really warmed my heart. I thought, I just love that. Not disrespect, but just, you know, seeing the world from a different point. And I'm sure there's probably things they could teach us, you know, as adults, and how quickly they can take things on. Just out of interest, so I know it's probably hard to say, how long might a course be if somebody's, you know, working with you? I'm sure it depends, but, you know, is it minimum a few weeks up to months?
Yeah, so I have a little program called Constant Calm, and it lasts 12 weeks, and it's got like different options in terms of how people can access. People can just take the course and go off, and it's available in video and audio, and partly it's available in audio because I don't want to give people anything extra to do.
Yeah.
People I work with have enough to do, quite frankly, and they're pretty overwhelmed by everything they've got to do anyway. So the idea is that the audios, they can just listen while they go for a walk, or they can listen while they're washing up or making the tea or whatever. You know, they don't have to actually sit down and study in that kind of formal way. So the whole course is available in video and audio, and they can just work through it and dip in and out with hours of coaching. They can just book hours here and there and pay for those as they go along, or I do a program where it's fortnightly we meet, or every week we meet. So there's kind of 3 options, and it then depends how far someone wants to go. Like, I never want to leave this conversation. I listen to something every day, and that's all I do now in terms of this whole self-care massive project that I used to have. Now I just, while I'm getting ready in the morning, I have a podcast from one of my teachers playing, and I just listen to that and pick up bits here and there. And I'm just noticing that over time, I used to nearly call myself the Be Less Bothered coach, because I just kind of, every so often something will happen and I'll just go, oh, it's not really bothering me anymore. It's a bit strange. Like I just have it's got lost its energetic charge.
It hasn't got a charge,
yeah. And that's so cool, because it kind of feels like there's more of me to be revealed from underneath this old conditioning. There's always more to be seen, and that's exciting, because who knows where that will lead. So,
well, we'll put it in the notes. That's why I was asking. You know, we'll clearly put it in the notes how people can either get in touch or download those, or have one-to-one sessions with you. And I know you also, you know, a lot of people probably aren't on. Well, many people aren't on LinkedIn, but is that your main platform? I know then it goes onto YouTube and it's recorded, but LinkedIn is where you go, you put the live. So it
does go live onto YouTube and my Facebook page. That's a bit left fallow, to be fair, but I also gets uploaded into my pod. Exactly the same content just gets downloaded and uploaded into my podcast. I also have a little freebie, a little free gift that I encourage people to download, and it's called The 5 Simple Truths to Take You Closer to Calm. And it's a very simple little booklet PDF, and the main content is audio. So you just click on each of the 5 simple truths, and it takes you through to an audio based on my website, and then you can download those onto your phone and just listen to them. I often say, listen like you're listening to music. Just kind of listen as many times as you like, but just let it wash over you. And so, that's a really nice way for people to sort of come into my world, as it were. And then from there, I tell them about everything else I've got going on, and I share kind of a weekly newsletter. So that's a really great place for people to put their toe in the water, because I'm pointing to something that's very different to what's out there, generally speaking. It's people often needed to dip their toe in the water to get a sense of where I'm heading with them.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that as well. I noticed that on LinkedIn, people can click on it and then download, like you said, the PDF. So we'll put a link to that as well. And
Oh,
I heard this story that like self-help didn't exist. Maybe you know this, but before Louise Hay, it didn't exist in bookshops. It's now the biggest section in every bookshop. And Louise Hay was the first, you can heal your life. And then, but like you said earlier, I think so much of the industry is based around you need this to make you feel better. You need this to resolve your problem. You need this. And like even a lot of these books I'm giving away soon because it's like, is this relevant to my life now? And I've come to much more of an understanding of this, awareness and observing and being okay with, I heard this thing. Have you heard of the Sedona method, by the way?
yes, I have actually. Yeah.
One of the things they say in the Sedona method is there's nothing you need to do, and know where you need to be. And there's nothing you need to do, know where you need to go to be who you are. Because we're always going somewhere or doing something to think, I need to do this to find myself or to be myself. But actually, what if we could just be aware and observing? And I think that's exactly what you're offering in a very simple and practical way. So,
and I love what you say there, because I think the fundamental thing that's changed for me, and this is the simplest way I can put it, is I don't care how I feel.
mm-hmm.
Like I know that I'm a human being. So if I have a moment of being upset or angry with my other half, or I have a moment of anxiety, or I don't think I've got to do anything about that. And that for me is the key, because what people don't often realize is by trying to change the feeling, you're holding it in place.
Yeah,
it's an illusion that you can get rid of your feelings. Your feelings are just information, and getting rid of a feeling is like putting a piece of cardboard over your dashboard and driving around all day in your car. You're going to get into trouble. Your feelings are there to let you know that some of your conditioning is being activated, and now I just go through them more like a toddler would. Toddlers go through 17 different feeling states in about 35 seconds, don't they? I mean, they're just like that, aren't they? Then, but they don't care. They don't judge any of them as being wrong. They don't judge any of them as being a problem. So they just go like this all the time, but more like that, because they don't care that they're in feeling states. They've not got any judgment of them. And it's our judgment that we think we're supposed to be, like you say, somewhere else, being different.
Or like other people, oh, look at that person, what they're doing. And
Mm.
actually, that's probably fake anyway these days, especially because people are making up profiles. And and I think things, thank goodness, there's your great work here, which we'll share with people. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I think things are changing in society. I mean, sometimes, just on the train platforms, I notice these big posters saying, it's okay not to be okay. And then I read it, I think, oh, this is good. There's a phone number here. Somebody's not feeling okay. They can phone this number, realize they're not the only ones not feeling okay. Let's chat. Let's be open. And I think we're getting to that point now. Maybe the pandemic helped to an extent that it pushed people really to their limits, realizing they need to be looking inside. And like you said, I like that expression. What was it about inside, outside, from the inside?
Well, it's all inside.
It's all inside.
There's nothing outside of us that's it's always about looking inside, definitely.
Looking inside. So we'll leave people with that thought, looking inside. And any final comment you'd like to leave people with? Of course, they can get in touch with you on the comments here.
I think the thing I always like to leave people with is that you're okay. Like, it's an illusion that you're not. And if you start looking towards your okayness rather than looking to what's wrong with you, that's where the transformation can be mind-blowing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be having another conversation, and encourage everybody to download the 5 Simple Truths. Maybe they can start there and then get in touch if they need more help or more diving deeper into who they truly are, into the understanding of themselves and ourselves.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Take care.
Thank you.